Hello, you beautiful nerds. I had an interesting experience this year where I watched 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later for the first time. I know, how have I not watched these movies before now? I don't know. When it came out, I was like, people say this movie is good, but it looks kinda not good. And when 28 Weeks Later came out, it looked like a Lego sequel that was desperately trying to cash in on the cult classic without doing anything that made the original interesting. It just kind of felt like a Blair Witch 2 situation, if you know what I mean. But thankfully, I was wrong on both counts. These movies rock. Not everyone agrees with me when it comes to Weeks, but I really like that one too, even with all its problems. This is also just a wildly fascinating franchise, and after spending a weekend watching all three movies, I felt the desire to talk about the timeline, the new movie, and the creators behind the camera. So cover yourself in iodine and sharpen your arrows, because today we're going to be talking about But first, a prelude. In the year of our Lord 2002, a little UK zombie movie came out by the name of... Though it didn't make buckets of money at the box office or anything, it did end up having a big cultural impact. Like, zombies weren't really in vogue in the early 2000s. One of the things that made this movie seem so fresh and different was its use of fast zombies. A lot of people say it was the first movie to have fast zombies, but that's not true. This movie did. But who cares? They made it popular. I have to take a second to talk about how incredible it is that these two guys are working together again. Director Danny Boyle already had Trainspotting under his belt before this flick, and he went on to make bangers like Sunshine, Slumdog Millionaire, and Steve Jobs. The guy just makes good movies. And writer Alex Garland has developed into a respectable director in his own right, making stellar sci-fi flicks like Ex Machina and Annihilation. Now, he has also made some stuff that I don't like, but I was very excited to see these two team up again, because this kind of never happens. My favorite Zack Snyder film, and it's a short list, my favorite Zack Snyder film is Dawn of the Dead, which was written by James Gunn, and I feel like their styles complement each other so well that they should make like 10 comic book movies together. But that will literally never happen. I don't know if it's ego or writer-directors not wanting to hustle backwards into a role of a writer for hire, or an auteur director not wanting to compromise their vision with another very big personality.
Danny, as a director, I didn't realize this until I worked with more people. Danny's a very unneurotic director, so he's not threatened by writers. And so I was sitting in on the auditions, then in pre-production and rehearsals. Every week there was a new cut and we would be discussing it. Danny is self-assured in the idea, I am directing this film, and he's not undermined or made neurotic by other people. I then learned that most directors are incredibly neurotic, and as the writer, when I said, okay, well, we're rehearsing tomorrow, they'd be like, what the fuck are you like?
I don't know what it is. It could be anything. All I know is that we're never gonna get that team up again, so I'm very happy that these two decided to reinvigorate this franchise that I'm sure many people thought was long dead. Not to mention that we're getting another one of these things next year, directed by friggin' Nia DaCosta. I'm so glad that the Marvels didn't land her in director jail, because did you guys see her Candyman movie that rules? Because it rules. So stoked to see her get back into horror, and can we talk about how cool it is that two middle-aged white British dudes hired a young black woman to carry the torch for their iconic franchise? Well, I'm actually being told that right now that no one wants to talk about that. Okay, so let's talk about the movie instead. In 2002, a bunch of dumb animal rights activists break into a lab and release some monkeys that are infected with a man-made, highly infectious rage virus. Then 28 days later, he said it! A man named Jim, who apparently is terrible at riding a bike, wakes up from a coma to find that while he was sleeping, the virus has broken out all over the UK. But unlike other zombie movies, it was contained because it's one big island. Because the infection takes a hold of the host so fast, there's zero chance of someone getting on an airplane or a boat without realizing that they were infected. The infected being contained to one country is also cool when it's revealed that life is just kind of going on as normal everywhere else.
I remember I had been to a country that was suffering some very intense kinds of hardships. And when I went back to England, I was sort of frustrated in some ways by some of the complacency of the country.
Jim meets Selena, a badass, Frank, not a badass, and his daughter Hannah, who is a child. She's a child. Frank gets infected and gets killed by these army dudes, and right when the crew feels like they might be a little safe, turns out these army dudes suck. Their plan is to force themselves on Selena and Hannah so they can repopulate civilization or some such shit. I think they haven't had sex in a month and they're using their horniness and their present situation as an excuse to be despicable human beings. But Jim goes total John Wick on the army dudes and rescues Hannah and Selena, and they pretty much live happily ever after. But not for everyone else in Britain. I'm pretty sure it sucks for everyone else. I love this movie. This movie rocks. And that leads us to the 2007 movie. In this one, the infection is over, and the U.S. Army has been brought in to assist with the reconstruction. As they start to reintegrate the survivors back into the country, two dumb kids ruin fucking everything. Actually, it's the whole family's fault. They're a goddamn mess. But to be fair, it is kind of a zombie apocalypse. Everything's a mess. You see, Don and Alice are a married couple that send their kids on a school trip or something to the States right before the outbreak. One day when Don and Alice are attacked by a group of infected, because Alice decides to let in some little kid, that's the first bad decision. In the insanity, Don leaves his wife and the dumb kid for dead in order to save his own skin. Second bad decision. Back to the present, Don's kids are the first kids to be reintegrated into the population, much to the chagrin of U.S. Medical Officer Scarlett. And we find out later why she was right. Homesick, the kids break out of the quarantine zone into the danger zone.
Danger zone.
To visit their home and to get a picture of their mom. And probably some CDs and weed and shit. I would make sure my weed and shit was still there. Anyway, that's just me.
We found your kids.
Oh, thank God, thank you so much.
We found your wife, too.
I've made a huge mistake.
When they get there, they discover that their mother is in the house and she's alive and she's surprisingly not infected. She is crazy though. After her and the kids are picked up by the military, we find out that she actually is infected with the virus. She doesn't display any symptoms, but she is a carrier, so she can still infect anyone. This is kind of visually indicated by how one of her eyes is all gross looking. They also imply that her kids, or at least her son, has the same genetic mutation that allows them to carry the virus without showing any symptoms. As the higher ups are discovering this and deciding what to do, Don's ignorant ass decides to kiss this woman on the mouth. I've lost count of how many bad decisions have been made at this point. Don gets infected and chaos ensues. I have to say that this was the most terrifying part of the movie. All these people in this tiny contained space panicking and being infected and killing each other. It actually reminded me a lot of this scene from 28 Days Later.
Parents and my sisters. We went to Paddington Station. The crowd was surging. I remember the ground was soft. I looked down and I was standing on all these people. Somewhere in the crowd they were infected. It spread fast. No one could run. All you could do was climb over more people, so I did that. I climbed.
Things keep escalating until they pretty much firebomb the whole region. Tammy and Andy manage to meet up with this army dude and he helicopters them to safety. In all the madness, Andy got infected, but like his mom, he isn't showing any symptoms. So we cut to 28 days later.
He said it.
And we see the infected running through the streets of Paris. This is the one that Boyle and Garland had the least to do with creatively. Boyle was a producer and Garland helped with the script, but a lot of people think that this one isn't as good. And it's not, but I still liked it. It obviously takes a step up visually. The cast is phenomenal, and it furthers the narrative of how inhuman humanity can be when they're on the ropes as a civilization. A sequel called 28 Months Later had been discussed as far back as 2007, with actors Cillian Murphy and Imogen Poots expressing interest in reprising their roles. It wasn't until 2023 that Boyle and Garland announced that that script has been changed and is now titled
7, 6, 11, 5.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Have you ever watched a movie from your childhood and thought it doesn't quite hold up like you remember? Well, then you would enjoy our bi-weekly series, Does It Hold Up?, where we revisit classic genre films with a special guest to help us determine if it is as good or as bad as we remember. It's a whole lot of fun, so you should check it out.
Please check out the Drunk Bantha channel. They clearly are ready for being seen at a higher level.
Back to the show.
So what even happens in this movie? Now, this movie doesn't straight up ignore the second movie. It's not like a Danny McBride Halloween situation. There are some references to that movie, but the ending of that one implied that the infected were no longer confined to the UK. But they just kind of brushed that off in this one, like, yeah, we drove him back to the UK. Everything's fine now, except in the UK. It still sucks there. It follows Spike, his ill mother Isla, and Spike's father Craven. They live on an island that helps protect them from being attacked by the wild infected that still inhabit the country. It's a very Jackson from The Last of Us situation. One day after Spike's first hunt off the island, one of the villagers tells him that there's a weird guy who used to be a doctor that lives out in the woods. Thinking that this weird doctor guy can help, he sneaks his mom off the island to find this doctor in hopes that he can cure whatever is ailing Isla. This story was a lot more emotional and introspective than I was expecting. The first movie definitely had its slower moments to remind you that this is a human story, but this film, especially in the third act, has a surprising level of sincerity and earnestness. One of the ideas that is explored is the othering of the infected. They don't stop being human just because they get infected. Ralph Fiennes' character, I can't remember what his name at the moment is, and I refuse to look it up, so I'm just gonna call him Bone Doctor. But yeah, the Bone Doctor is pretty much the only person who treats the infected with dignity and respect. To everyone else, they're pretty much seen as monsters that need to be exterminated. This story posits that the infected, though dangerous and terrifying, aren't quite as monstrous as they're perceived to be, and that the people who haven't been infected maybe aren't more humane just because they have a sense of civility. I think the next film is really gonna double down on this, but we'll get into that. Just like the last two movies, this cast is incredible. ATJ is just wonderful as Craven the Hunter, just, you know, reprising that role. Jodie Comer is wonderful as well. Ralph Fiennes is delightful as always. It's funny how he's set up to be this psychotic Dr. Moreau type character, and then when he shows up in the third act, it's like, oh, hello, would you like a biscuit? Maybe some morphine? It's like, I felt like I was being checked into the Grand Budapest Hotel. It was crazy. Though my favorite performance was probably by Alfie Williams, who plays Spike. He's really the main character, and he effortlessly carries this film on his back. Spike is so kind and sincere, and after the biggest day of his life, he experiences this enormous betrayal that sends him on a devastating emotional journey. I can't wait to see what this kid does in the next one. Again, this whole cast is great, but this kid impressed the hell out of me, and I gotta give him the coveted MVP award. I do want to talk briefly about the very end of this movie, so super spoiler warning for this section. Okay, so in the last minute of this movie, I was so perplexed because it felt like a whole new movie just started, and that movie was like Power Rangers, but at the same time I was having a fucking ball. Like, I was totally in. So it explained the end, I gotta go back to the beginning. The film starts with a flashback to day one of the infection, where this little boy named Jimmy and his family get attacked by the infected. He manages to escape and gets a crucifix necklace from a crazy priest. He calls him father, but I don't know if it's his actual dad, because, you know, Catholics. Fast forward to the end of the movie, Alfie is cornered by a group of infected, and who comes to the rescue but Jimmy, all grown up, wearing the crucifix necklace but upside down. He's got a gang of homies with him who all dress the same, and they proceed to kill the zombies like they're hyper violent Power Rangers. Again, I love this, and it made me very excited about what's about to come. Some people didn't vibe with the ending, saying it felt too Marvel-y the way it was setting up the next film, but it didn't really feel anywhere near as obnoxious as some of the Marvel stuff that has come out in the past. Probably because I know this movie is actually going to come out and we'll actually see a resolution to this setup. I was really hoping that Alfie was going to mention the fact that they look like Power Rangers, though, because he was playing with Power Rangers at the beginning. He sees these guys at the end. It just seems maybe that'll be the first thing he says at the beginning of the next movie. Fingers crossed that we get a Power Rangers reference in the next movie. I had a blast with this one, and though it's a different kind of film than 28 Days Later, it still feels like it belongs in the franchise, and it opens up the possibilities of potential dangers our heroes could face. My ranking, I loved it. I loved all three. That concludes this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel so you can get updates on new videos and our live shows like the Drunk Banthas podcast and the Bantha Bunch. But until next time, stay safe, my little Samsons, and may the force be with you.